Hey everyone, it's Julie with San Diego Voice and Accent. If you're working on sounding more natural and confident in American English, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, I'm diving into a scene from the Netflix series Wednesday.
Hey, freak. This is a close practice.
The only person who gets to torture my brother is me.
Are you feeling okay? You look a little pale.
Wednesday always looks half dead.
When I look at you, the following emojis come to mind. Rope, shovel, hole.
Yes, that Wednesday Addams. The gothic queen of deadpan sarcasm, sharp stares, and surprisingly subtle English pronunciation. This show isn't just fun to watch, it's a goldmine for learning real, modern American English. The characters speak with clear intonation patterns, lots of reductions, and the kind of rhythm you need to sound fluent. Plus, you'll hear some very emotionally charged lines, which are perfect for practicing expressive speech. This scene is from Season 2 of Wednesday, which premieres in the US in August 2025. So depending on when you're watching this video, Season 2 might not have aired yet. But luckily, I have a sneak peek at the first 6 minutes of Season 2. So be prepared. There might be a few spoilers here. In this scene, Wednesday is at the airport, and she's going through security. Her luggage gets flagged for a bag search, and the TSA agent is just about to look through her bag. I'll analyze the conversation that Wednesday has with the TSA agent. We'll look at how Wednesday uses a flat, sarcastic tone and how that affects her rhythm. We'll hear how the TSA agent talks really quickly and links everything together. And we'll break down exactly how both of these speakers blur their words, drop sounds, and punch key syllables. All the things that make English tricky to hear and say. So by the end of this video, you won't just understand what they're saying, you'll know how to sound like them, how to speak with more natural rhythm, better pronunciation, and more confidence. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and let's jump into it. Here's the full conversation.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
Sun cream? Seriously?
Here's sentence number 1.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
So here's my analysis of sentence number 1. And this sentence is spoken by Wednesday. And first of all, you will notice her intonation. If you are a fan of this show and you watched the show a lot, and I have to admit, I haven't seen the show yet. So this is my first time actually watching the show, but it seems very interesting. Maybe I'll check out season 1 before season 2 premieres in the US. But you'll notice that Wednesday has a very specific style of speech. She's very flat, very sarcastic. Her intonation is quite, and she kind of just talks like this. And she ends in glottal fry or vocal fry quite often. So that's kind of what you're going to see here in this analysis of her sentences in this conversation. So let's look at the intonation first, and that's noted here with that pink line at the top. So she starts out with a little bumps in her intonation. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. And she does this thing that I have noted here called vocal fry at the end of the word city. She does it again in the next sentence. It's a prosthetic hand. She just ends her voice with this kind of what you might think of as like lazy voicing. She's just not supporting the voice with very good airflow. And this is something, that her character does quite often. So she's got relatively flat intonation. It sounds quite boring, right? But this is her personality. That's what she does. And then ends with that vocal fry where the voice gets kind of gravelly and punchy like that. Vocal fry. So, this type of intonation pattern, while not very natural or very exciting, this is what she's using in this scene. And the other speaker in the scene, the TSA agent, you'll hear he uses very different intonation that's more conventional. But nonetheless, if you want to try to imitate this style of speech, here is a great character to use. So this is flat, boring. She's very she's not interested in this conversation. She's almost like put off that she has to have this conversation with these TSA agents. So that's kind of why she's talking like this, duh. All right. So listen carefully to this intonation pattern. I'll play it a couple of times for you and try to imitate along with the character Wednesday.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
Okay, moving right along. Let's look at some of the reductions that she uses, and she uses a few here. The reductions are noted in the blue color that you see. So first, it's that word I'm. It's a pronoun for I am. And I hear her kind of reduce that diphthong. I don't hear her say I'm, as if she's, stressing this word. It's more like a very fast I'm, I'm, I'm. And lots of times, this pronoun is actually pronounced as with the schwa sound. Now, I don't necessarily hear her say that, but I don't hear her use I, the full diphthong there either. So get used to doing that when you see these pronouns. I've, a lot of the I apostrophe pronouns, that I is going to typically be very fast. And in general, pronouns, they're function words, they're going to be reduced most of the time anyway, unless they're stressed, in which case you're going to hear that full diphthong I. But here, it's not stressed. I'm, 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 I'm. So try to get that as quickly as you can. And then I hear a couple of other reductions. She reduces the word to the schwa, t. And the word the, while that's typically going to be transcribed using the schwa vowel, I definitely hear her reduce it. And maybe even she drops the part and it's kind of just the th sound to the, 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 to the. So get used to saying that very quickly. Now, the reduction of to, from the oo vowel to the vowel, not every non-native speaker is using that. A lot of you are, but some of you aren't. So really, it can go either way. It depends on how that word to, is used in the sentence. But I would really encourage you to pay attention to that one right there. Pay attention to that one, to that one, to. That's how I pronounced the word to in my natural conversational speech. It really was almost just the T sound, to. So really that vowel gets reduced quite a bit in spoken English. So if that's a new type of reduction for you, really, really listen for it and practice it because that's going to help your rhythm. It's just going to help. And it's just super common. And same thing with the word the. Lots of times that sound is dropped and it's really just the th, or a very quick Okay, so I hear two reductions there back to back, the, to the, to the. Then another common reduction that she says in that last sentence, it's a prosthetic hand. It's that little word a is very rarely pronounced as a with that diphthong. It's almost always reduced to the schwa, uh, 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 uh. It's a really fast, really quick. All right, so I'll play this back for you so you can listen for those reductions.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
All right, now let's talk about the linking. So I'm going to talk about linking that she uses within words and across word boundaries because linking happens in both. It happens between syllables within the same word and then across word boundaries where words kind of connect with each other. So I want to point out some of the flaps that she's using. So here in the word headed, she's using a flap for that D in the middle D in headed. Now, I'll tell you the rule, the rule of the flap. It can apply to the T sound, but also the D sound. Both of those sounds in American English turn into a flap, which is a quick D, where the tongue tip just hits the roof of the mouth very quickly. When T or D are between vowels and they begin an unstressed syllable, that's when they can change to the flap. So we typically call this a flap T because when the T sound changes, it's very different, right? From a T to a D. When the D sound changes, it's quite similar. It's just faster. But really, it's the flap. It's not the flap T. It's called flap, right? It's a flap sound. So that's noted here in the IPA. It looks like a little kind of a hook, or it looks like the letter R without like the top part to it. That's a flap, the IPA symbol for the flap. So she changes that D in headed in the middle to a flap sound. And then, because she's linking the syllable head to the syllable id, headed, 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 not headed. It's not a heavy D, it's a flap. But the second D, she's linking to the T sound in to or t. So this rule is different. When you have a final stop consonant, like a D sound, a P sound, a K sound, and they link to another consonant, that first stop consonant typically becomes unreleased. So that means that this final D in headed is not headed, There's no drop of her tongue. It's not released. The tongue tip actually stays up in contact with the alveolar ridge, and then she pronounces the T. So here's what it is not. This is not how she links headed with to. Headed to. Headed to. Or really, she reduces it. Headed to. Headed to. Headed the. That second D, the tongue does not come down. She keeps it up. It's unreleased. So that's why you see this little bracket at the end of the D there. So it sounds like this. Headed to. Headed to. Headed to. Headed to. I'm headed to the. I'm headed to the. So her tongue tip remains up. Now this can be quite challenging for many of you. What you might do instead is inadvertently or accidentally or unintentionally substitute a glottal stop instead. Head it to, head it, But that's actively closing the vocal cords. That's not an unreleased D. That's a glottal stop, which is actually a T in English. So get the tongue tip up, headed, headed to, headed to. Don't drop the tongue. Keep it up there and then connect it to the T sound in ta. All right. The next link that I want to point out is the link between the words junior and embalmers. So here the word junior ends with the sound, and I've written it out here as So you can see how this final connects to the in im or im in embalmers. You just continue that R sound. Junior embalmers, junior im. Keep that R sound going. Don't stop the vocal cords. This will help you, this will kind of force you to pronounce this final sound like the American R that you can hold out. There's no flap there. The tongue tip doesn't touch anything. If you feel like your tongue tip goes junior-dim, embalmers, junior-dim, that means you're flapping or tapping that R sound, and that is not how the American R is pronounced. So keep that R going and connect it to the next word, embalmers. All right, moving on. Another link she does is she links the words embalmers with the word embalmers with the word convention. And you'll see here I have the Z symbol with a little circle underneath it, linking up with the K symbol in convention. So that final letter S in embalmers should be voiced. It should be a Z, not S, right? That's a voiced sound there because embalmer ends with the voiced sound, So when you add an S to the ending, that S also has voicing. Z becomes like a Z. But when you're linking a final Z consonant to another consonant that's voiceless, like the K consonant in convention, that Z consonant drops almost all of its voicing. Now, this is called voicing assimilation or assimilation of voicing when you're linking words together. It's quite common in spoken English when you have a final Z consonant or a final fricative consonant that is voiced and it's linking to a voiceless consonant. Those sounds are going to assimilate, and that final Z consonant is going to drop some or all of its voicing in order to match the voicing of the next consonant, which is the K consonant, which is voiceless. So it's not embalmer's convention. There's not this heavy voicing there. Embalmer's convention. It's almost like there's no voicing at all. Maybe a little bit of voicing at the very beginning, but certainly the last 75% of that Z consonant, the voicing has dropped out because it's linking with a voiceless K consonant. Embalmer's convention. And really, for some speakers, like for me, I feel like there's maybe no voicing there at all. Okay, so that's a common link. So if you're having difficulty with this final Z sound in English, a lot of native Spanish speakers maybe struggle with this. When you're linking to a voiceless consonant, don't worry about it because that voicing is going to drop anyway. All right, the next link I want to point out is how she links the word convention with the word in. Now, this link is fairly easy. You're linking a final N consonant to a vowel. So you just let that N kind of extend over to the beginning of the next word. Convention, nin. So it's not convention in. There's no gap. It's convention, nin. So just put an N sound at the beginning of the word in, and you've got the link. All right. She does another fairly simple or easy to complete link when she links Kansas to the word city. Kansas ends with a voiceless S sound. That's just how it's pronounced. And city begins with a voiceless S as well. So you just, so when you have two of those consonants that are the same sound, you just extend out the sound. And this is quite common with fricatives like the S consonant. Kansas City. Like there's just one S. Kansas City. Okay, so that's a pretty easy link for most people to complete. She has another flap in the middle of the word city, so that's almost always how this word is pronounced. It's very rarely city, city. So get used to that one too. There you have a flap right in the middle. It's between two vowels, city, city, a quick D sound there. And then one more flap link I want to point out is in the word prosthetic. Okay, so we'll talk about that TH sound in a second, but that T, that in prosthetic, the final T, that is between vowels and it becomes a flap. Prosthetic, thick, 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 prosthetic. All right, so I'll play this back for you so you can hear all these links.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
Okay, just a few more things I want to discuss about this part of the conversation. And these are just some tricky pronunciations that this character is using, and it's noted in the red color. So firstly, let's talk about this L in the word embalmers. That's a dark L. Now that can be quite tricky for some people to pronounce, for most people to pronounce actually. And really, you're going to hear that this vowel before that L sound is actually pronounced kind of dark meaning kind of pulled back into the mouth. So to contrast that, the light L, I describe that as more bright. It's kind of at the front of the mouth, but this dark L, when the L sound comes after a vowel in the same syllable, it's pronounced farther back in the mouth and pronounced with the back of the tongue. Now, if this sound is challenging for you, I have many videos on my YouTube channel and on my website that discuss how to pronounce this dark L sound. But just remember, it's made with the back of the tongue, embalmers. And when I pronounce that, my tongue tip is down, embal. My entire tongue is kind of resting on the bottom of my mouth, and the back of the tongue kind of narrows and pulls back. Okay, so it's a sound that's made back here. Ball, ball. It's not embalmers, embal. That's more of a light L. You can hear how the resonance kind of shifts to the front. Embal. Nope, this is kind of back here. Balmers, embalmers. So, this is not a very common word, embalmer, but this is a common sound combination, this ah plus L, dark L combination. Very common in American English. So practice that one. Go to those videos on my YouTube channel or my website and practice with those as well. We also have, I wanted to just point out the word Kansas. So that first S in Kansas is a Z sound, not an S sound. But the second S is an S sound. So you have a voiced Z plus a voiceless S, Kansas. So kind of challenging there. The spelling, both S's, but who knows why? In American English, that letter S can sometimes be voiced or unvoiced, and here you have both in this word. And then one other tricky pronunciation, though, of the word prosthetic. And that has a TH, a voiceless TH right in the middle. Again, this is not a common word unless you work with prosthetic hands and legs and things like that. But still, it's good to just practice this tricky pronunciation, prosthetic. And you'll notice that I'm using more of a reduced tongue placement there. My tongue tip doesn't really come out for this one. Prosthetic, prosthetic, prosthetic. My tongue tip is really reduced, which is not very common with this voiceless TH. Usually that happens with the voiced TH, but here it does happen prosthetic. And probably because of the influence of the S consonant right before, and maybe that flap that's coming up. And really, this is kind of a challenging word for native speakers even to pronounce because they're not quite sure how to pronounce that th. Prosthetic, it's because it's just uncommon. So it's a voiceless th. Keep your tongue tip in. Just hit the back of the teeth. Prosthetic, prosthetic, prosthetic. No voicing there, and see if that helps. That you don't have to push the tongue tip out. Okay, so listen to this sentence again, and then we'll move on to sentence number 2.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand. I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
All right, and here we are with sentence number 2, and this is spoken by the TSA agent. So he's looked in Wednesday's bag and he found the thing that flagged her luggage, and he pulls out this sun cream or some sort of lotion or something. So here is his intonation pattern. It's very typical of American English, and it's noted in the pink line at the top. Yeah, that's not the problem. Okay, very typical intonation there. Yeah, goes down. Yeah, that's not. So he bumps up on the negative, that's not, and then down again on the function word, and then problem, problem. So the stressed syllable of problem, has a little bump, and then blum, 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 blum. That final syllable, he has a quick little glide down in his intonation and kind of ends very downward. Yeah, that's not the problem. Very typical there. Okay. And then the next sentence, he's asking kind of a yes, no question. So that's why he ends with upward intonation. You care to explain this? You care to explain this? So he bumps up on care and down on you and to, which are the two function words there. And then his final, and then up on explain a little bit. And then the final word, this, ending with upward intonation because he's asking her a yes, no question. Okay, so let's listen to intonation again.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
All right, now let's talk about the reductions that he uses, and we'll start with the blue, what's noted in the blue color. So the word the. Now, I talked about this in the prior sentence. Here he is using a reduced th pronunciation for this voiced th, and it's the schwa sound, and he might also just be dropping that schwa. The. So that's not not the. So his tongue tip is not coming out here. This is the reduced tongue position that you can use for the voiced th sound when it comes at the beginning of a word or syllable that's unstressed. And oftentimes, that word is going to be reduced because lots of times these little words like the, this, that, there, these are function words, and many times they are reduced. And I'm using this reduced th tongue position, I don't know, 80% of the time. Lots and lots of times I'm doing this rather than having my tongue tip come out. Now, when any of these words are stressed, now the tongue tip typically does come out because that helps with the pronunciation, that helps to stress the word. But lots of times, like I said, it's these function words, the, this, that, and they're typically unstressed and reduced. So that's what he's doing here. And I almost hear him dropping the schwa vowel, and it's just the th sound. The problem, the problem, the. It's very fast. This is often how this word, the, is pronounced. So if that's new to you, if you're having trouble, really, really pay attention to this type of reduction so you can start to imitate what those native speakers are doing and get that rhythm. Shorten this word. So he also reduces the word to, and we'll get this when we do the linking, but it's not t. He actually pronounces that T as a flap. And when he links care to the word to, careda, 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 da, da. That's how he's pronouncing the word to. It's not to, it's da, da. Again, how would you know? Like, that's a really common way of pronouncing the word to. Lots of times that T sound is reduced or is changed to a flap, depending on, are there vowels around it? Here there are. And then the oo sound is often reduced to the schwa. So this little word to is often pronounced as da. But you would never know that if you were reading the captions only. So this is a good reminder that you should be, when you're improving your pronunciation, you should be thinking about what are you hearing, not what are you reading. You're not improving your reading skills. You're improving your listening and pronunciation skills. And that's all just listening. There's no reading involved, right? So that's how he pronounces this word too. And one more kind of reduction that I'll talk about right now, and it's noted here in the red. Now, it's not quite a reduction, but he is dropping sounds here. So I want to highlight this in this same section. The T sound in that's. Okay, the word that's has a TS cluster at the end, that. And it's kind of pronounced with a glottal stop T, that. That. So there's typically an active closure of the vocal cords there, and that helps to signal the T sound. And the T sound is made kind of where it's made a little bit lower in the mouth because this TS cluster, those two sounds kind of assimilate. The tongue placement assimilates. And instead of the T being made at the alveolar ridge, it comes down a little bit more to be closer to where the S sound is made. But really here, he drops that T. I don't hear him say that. I hear him say thas. Thas. Yeah, there's not. There's not. There's not. There's not. There's not. So, again, this can happen in fast speech, right? Native speakers are dropping sounds all the time. And lots of times it is this T sound that will get dropped. It's not, I wouldn't say do it all the time. Always drop the T in this TS cluster. That's not accurate either. And I would actually say, that's kind of lazy speech. I don't really like that dropped T. But that's how he pronounced it here. So I wanted to point that out. So if you are trying to imitate this exactly, that's what you would do. You would drop that T. But really, I would not get in the habit of doing that because, depending on who you're talking to, if you're speaking like for a presentation or you're going in for an interview, that's a T sound there that you don't want to always drop, right? You want to put that T sound in there. Some T's you can drop, but that one is not one that follows that rule. But when you're with your friends and just casually speaking, yeah, you might drop that T every now and then. So sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. But nevertheless, that's what he does here. So I'll play this back for you so you can hear all those reductions.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
All right, and lastly, let's talk about his linking. So, like I just mentioned, he drops that T in the word that's, and when he links the word that's with the word not, it's almost like he's saying the word snot. Okay, so think about that final S in that's carrying over to the word not, and that's not, that's not, that's snot. Okay, so let that S sound carry over to the word not, that's not. And then he changes the final T in the word not to a glottal stop, which you'll see here noted. It looks like a little question mark without the dot underneath it. And I note that also with like a vertical line right after the T. That's a stop T or a glottal stop T made with the vocal cords. And the rule there is when you have a final T linking to a consonant, that final T is often unreleased, and the T usually changes to a glottal stop T, which is just made with the vocal cords. Now, your tongue tip might come up. That's not because you have this TH sound coming up next, right? So you might bring your tongue tip up because the tongue tip is involved in that next TH sound, or you might not. That's not the problem. You might find, I think for me, my tongue tip does not come up here. It stays down. Not, not, not. It's an active closure of the vocal cords. So remember, you gotta feel that. You gotta feel something stopping the airflow. It's not just you just stop breathing. Or stop your voice. That's not the problem. Nope. A glottal stop T has an abrupt, crisp ending, and there's a small gap where there's no sound at all. That's the stop T. That's it. That's not the problem. So the stop T is actually an absence of sound. It's not a dropped T because you're doing something. You're closing the vocal cords. That is the T sound there. Okay. He does it again when he says, he actually uses another glottal stop in between the words to and explain. So it's the same glottal stop. It's not a stop T, but it's the same kind of closure of the vocal cords. So I wrote glottal stop, no vowel to vowel link, no V link, because he could have linked, you care to explain this? Care to explain? Explain. He could have just continued with his voicing between the to the next word explain, but that's not typical. You don't typically link a final schwa sound to another vowel. You typically break the link and put a stop, a glottal stop in between. And that's what he does there. So that's why I noted it with a glottal stop, because he doesn't link those two vowels together. He says, care to explain, care to explain. So you can kind of get the feeling of that too, that this glottal stop also occurs between vowels sometimes in American English when you don't do a vowel to vowel link. So these are two places where a glottal stop occurs. One could be for a T sound, and one can be between vowels when you don't link them. And the link right before that, something I talked about earlier, cared. Here he's ending the word care with the air R-colored vowel. Now you'll notice there's an R sound there, but the R is part of the vowel, air. So it functions like a vowel in the word. So we're going to treat this like a vowel because it's linking to a T and it's allowing that T to change to the flap. So that's pronounced as cared. Cared. All right. So listen to this sentence again, practice all those links, and we'll move on to sentence number 3.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this? Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
All right, everyone, we're about halfway through the analysis. Thanks for sticking with me. Let's talk about this sentence, and it is spoken by Wednesday. So she begins with one word, curious. And you'll notice in this scene, she's really not moving her mouth a whole lot. But I do hear her pronounce some reductions here, some different R-colored vowels. But I want to point out first her intonation. So she uses, typical intonation here on this word curious. Her intonation goes down at the end. And then she uses her, Wednesday, her characteristically Wednesday sarcastic flat intonation and ending in vocal fry, which is this sound here. She says, I have no idea how that ended up in there. All right. So again, this is not your typical intonation. I would say it's kind of boring. And if you talk like this all the time, people will just tune you out. They will not be excited to talk to you. but this is this character, right? So this is the intonation she's using for this character. So if you want to imitate her, this is what you'll do. But I would not recommend doing this in real life. You'll want to use exciting intonation, and ups and downs and use a lot of variety. But that's not what this character does. So let's play this back for you again so you can hear her intonation and her vocal fry at the end.
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
All right, now let's look at her reductions, which are noted in the blue font. So the first reduction I hear is the word have. Have. I have. So this word have is often reduced. It's a function word. When it is used as a function word, it's often reduced, and that vowel can change to lots of different vowels. Here, I hear her use more of the as in red, head, bed vowel. I have. And I think she's doing that because she's also not really moving her mouth here. I have. So to pronounce as an apple, you really do have to move the lips out a little bit more and drop your chin. Ha, ha. Now, the minute you reduce your lip movement or your jaw movement, a different vowel will come out. Ha, he, he. More of the as in red, head, bed vowel. So that's what she's doing here because she's looking down and she's like not moving her mouth very much. So it makes sense that a different vowel is going to come out because she's not opening her mouth enough to make this vowel that's usually in this word have. So I hear her kind of reduce this to have. And now that's not a common reduction of this word, but it happened here. Then she says the word that. Now, again, she is reducing that TH. She's using the reduced tongue placement, and also that does happen with this word because it's not stressed and it's the voiced TH. So she's reducing that tongue placement, but also she's, again, not moving her moving her jaw or mouth very much. So why would she say, I have no idea how that ended up in there? There's no reason for her to pronounce this full TH sound. She's going to reduce it there because she's not nothing is moving, right? She's talking kind of like this. So reduced tongue placement there. That. She does another reduced TH in the last word. There. Again, she's not moving much of her articulators, so that reduction happens very naturally. All right, so listen again to these reductions.
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
Okay, let's look at her linking. So I pointed out here between the words no and idea. So she could have done a link there. No idea. No idea. She could have linked that final O sound and the initial I sound with a small little w consonant. That's a vowel to vowel link that commonly can occur. No idea. But she doesn't do that. She breaks the link and she uses a glottal stop there. I have no idea. No idea. It's subtle, but she breaks that link with a glottal stop. Okay, remember that's another area in American English where a glottal stop can occur at a final T sound, also between vowels. Okay, so there's a glottal stop. Now, the way that she pronounces the final T in that. So that ended. So she could have changed that T to a flap if she wanted to, because it does occur between vowels and it's not stressed, but she pronounces it as a true T. So that's why I have a big T underneath it. That ended. That ended. Okay, so she made that choice. I think it's maybe to draw a little bit more attention to the word that. As soon as you put in a true T sound in a word that could be pronounced with a flap, you draw attention to it. So that's probably what she decided to do here. She wanted to stress the word or just draw attention to the word that in some way. But then you'll notice she's got two flaps in the next word, ended, because she's linking ended with the word up. So again, the flap can be D or T between vowels as long as they're unstressed. So ended up, ended up, ended up, ended up. Those are two flaps there. So think about pronouncing that phrase quickly. Ended up, ended up. Da, 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 da. Quick flaps there. And then we have one more link between the words up and in. So she uses an unreleased P in that word. Up, bin, up, bin. So that's why it's noted after that P, you have a little bracket there. Now, unreleased means for the P sound, the lips stay closed at the end of that sound. It's not this. Up, in, up, in. There's no active release there. It's up, in. Of course, the lips do open when you're pronouncing the next sound in or the next word in, but there's not an active release for the P sound. Up, that's it. Up, lips stay closed. Up, in, up, in. So also think about there's no aspiration there. It's not up, pin, up, pin. I've worked with plenty of non-native speakers who try to aspirate like P's or K sounds when they're not aspirated. Here it's not aspirated. This is not an aspirated P. Up, bin, up, bin, up, bin. You feel a little bit of air, but it's not actively aspirated. There's no active p, p, up, pin. Nope. Up, bin, up, bin. All right, that link happens there. Okay, let's play that back so you can hear all of those links.
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
All right, so just one more word I want to discuss here, and it's the word curious. So the pronunciation that she's using is the top one that I have spelled out for you, using the stressed vowel, cure, cure, cure. Now you might also see this word transcribed in a dictionary using the R-colored vowel, cure, cure, curious. But I would say that when you see the R-colored vowel in a word, many times native speakers are actually using instead. Okay, I'll just say it like that. It's going to be So this is where a dictionary might not match with how native speakers are actually pronouncing a word. Sometimes it can match and sometimes it doesn't. So she's using that top pronunciation, cure, 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 curious. Now, if you look at the spelling of that word, that last syllable is O-U-S. So it's going to be tricky, right? Because she's not pronouncing it like O-U-S. She's not saying os. She's saying is, is, is. She's using the short I, hit, bit, fit vowel, okay? The short I sound. Curious is. Now that's a really common vowel reduction that happens when you have words that end in O-U-S or these kind of bizarre spellings. Curious is. So get used to seeing that spelling, but pay attention to the pronunciation of it. It's gonna maybe be different than what you think. Okay, so she is definitely reducing that last syllable. Is not us or os or anything like that. Okay, so I want to draw your attention to that because there's lots of words in American English that have these bizarre spellings, OUS, just weird spellings. But those letters are often, reduced to just one vowel sound. And here it's is, is. Curious, curious. All right, so let's listen to this sentence again, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there. Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
All right, here is the next sentence, and we've got some really good things to talk about here. This sentence is spoken by the TSA agent. So let's look at his intonation first, and that's noted in the pink line above the words. So he has some ups and downs with his intonation. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. Okay, so he's got some kind of typical intonation kind of bumping up and down there. That final word, no-no, he up, down, no-no, ending with downward intonation. Okay, so that's fairly typical. The next sentence again, I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. Very common, typical intonation there. Appreciate it if you, I'd appreciate it if you. I'd is a pronoun, so kind of low. He pops up on the stressed syllable of appreciate it if you, it if you, it if you. Those next words are quite low. He pops up on the negative didn't, which he has an interesting pronunciation there. And then down on waste, are, and then time. So that final content word, time, he kind of bumps up and has a glide down. All of that very typical intonation there. So let's just listen to this again. I'll play it a few times for you so you can practice along with him.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
All right, now let's look at his reductions. And he uses a couple of very, very common reductions. The reductions are noted in the blue. So the first reduction we'll look at is the word a in a big no-no. Okay, so he reduces that to the schwa, Very, very common there. Probably not hard for most of you. Although I have heard, plenty of non-native speakers who are trying to use that full a. Now, this type of reduction happens in words as well. And I didn't highlight this, but I want to point this out to you now in the word appreciate. That first syllable, it's the schwa sound. That's how this word is pronounced. It's not appreciate. Appreciate. That's not the pronunciation. It's appreciate. So there you're going to hear this letter A being reduced to quite a bit, when it's on its own little function word, a big no-no. But also when it's part of the word where it's unstressed, like in appreciate. So that's typically where it's harder for most people. They see a letter A and they want to pronounce it as appreciate. But nope, this follows the same rules of the reductions. It's an unstressed syllable, and so it's the schwa. And then he uses another really, really common reduction that most people are not using. And this is the word hour, O-U-R, hour. So that's the stressed pronunciation, hour. That's not how he pronounces it here. He reduces it to just R. So I wrote in quotes, it's like the word A-R-E, R. Not hour. You can see how much more my lips have to move in order to pronounce that full ow vowel. So it's reduced. This is a pronoun. It's usually not stressed. So when it's reduced and not stressed, it's almost always going to be R. So here's another one, another easy reduction that you can start using in your speech to help you master that rhythm and that overall clarity of a native speaker. This reduction. So implement this reduction in your speech as well. So I'll play this back so you can hear these reductions.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
All right, now let's look at his linking. So the first three words, this is over. He links all those together. This is over. This is over. This is over. The first S in this is voiceless. The next letter S in is voiced. This is over. This is over. This is over. Think about it as one word. This is over. You just made up a word in English. This is over. Now, you might find that pretty easy to do, but it's good to be aware, oh yeah, you're linking it there. This is over, like one word. Now, the word 3.4, those words, I didn't type them out for you because they wouldn't fit on this slide here, but that little point in between 3.4, he reads that as 3.4. So the word is point, P-O-I-N-T, that ends with a T sound. Now that T is linking to the F in the word for. Now we have that final T linking to a consonant, so he pronounces it as a glottal stop T. 3.4. 3.point. Now that's a weird pronunciation there. Point. I don't really feel my tongue tip coming up for that N. I'm just kind of nasalizing the vowel a little bit and ending the sound with my vocal cords for the T sound. Point. There's that nasalization. So this is a weird N that it's kind of like not necessarily there but it's represented by nasalizing the vowel in oi, in point. Point. You can hear that nasal. So there, my brain hears that I'm pronouncing an N and I can hear it in someone else's speech, but I'm not necessarily saying point. I'm not really bringing my tongue tip up for a true N sound. I'm just nasalizing the vowel. There's my N, and then I'm pronouncing a T with my vocal cords with a glottal stop. Point. 0.4. So that's kind of a tricky, fun, very native pronunciation there that you might not be using as well when you have this NT ending. So try to match that. And then I put a line after the 4 linking to ounces, and I wrote no VV link. So there he could have linked 4 ounces, but he doesn't. He breaks that link with a glottal stop. 4 ounces. Now, again, the minute you break a link that could be there, it makes kind of that next word or either of those words stand out a little bit more. So I think he's trying to kind of emphasize the fact that, it's a size 3.4 ounces and she's over. It's bigger than that. So he's emphasizing the size of this thing because what she has is bigger, right? But in any case, he does not link it there. So I just wanted to point that out. He could have, but he chose not to. All right. The next link I want to talk about, and we'll also kind of talk about this, I highlighted it in red. It's kind of a dropped T. Again, he's dropping this TS ending, not common, or the T and the TS ending, but he's doing it here. So as he links the word means to the word it's, and then it's to the word he drops that T in it's, that TS cluster. So this is something maybe in his speech, he's done it twice now, right? And I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this all the time, but I want to point this out because that's what I heard him do. He does drop the T. And when he links it all together, those 3 words, means, it's, sounds like means is, which means is a big no-no, which means is a. All right, so you got two back-to-back Z sounds there, but there's no T. Means is a. Now again, I wouldn't get in the habit of always doing that because there are times when you want to know that you can pronounce this TS cluster clearly. Means it's a, means it's a, means it's a, it's a. You're going to want to pronounce that T sometimes, but here he doesn't do it, okay? So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily follow the rules of dropping a T or that disappearing T sound like in the word internet. Here, he's just doing this in fast speech. Again, he's speaking a little faster here. And maybe it's just something unique with his pronunciation because he's now done it twice, where I wouldn't normally have done this either of those times. So very interesting there. Then we have a flap in the word I'd because he's linking I'd to a vowel in appreciate. So we have a D between vowels, Ida. And so I just have the first two syllables there highlighted for you. Ida, Ida, Ida. I'd appreciate, Ida. So think about just kind of making that link very quickly with a flap. Ida, Ida, Ida. I'd appreciate, I'd appreciate. Okay? But then we have a couple of flaps coming up next. So it's all here in the green. So the final T in appreciate and the T in it both become flaps. Now, when you link these words together, it sounds like appreciated if you. So that's what I have typed out here for you. Did if you. That flap moves over to the beginning of the next word. So it resyllabifies. Appreciated if you. Appreciated if you. Did if you. Appreciated if you. So think about that. Those T's turn to flaps. They move over to the beginning of the next words, and that's how you're linking that together. I'd appreciate it if you. Did if you. Okay, that could be very challenging for lots of you, but once you get it, you're going to get it and you're going to love it because it's flap, 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 and it's fast. Now, one more link I want to discuss, the final T in the word waist. Okay, so that final T is part of this ST cluster, waist. So, and it's linking to a vowel. So he's pronouncing that as a true T. So I want to point that out, that it's not a stop T or a flap T or a dropped T. He's pronouncing it. Waist-ar, 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 waist-ar. All right, so listen back to these links.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
All right, just a couple more things I want to point out with this section of the conversation. In the word appreciate. So maybe some of you, you already know like this SH sound in English can be spelled lots of different ways. I just wanted to point it out here that appreciate, that syllable is pronounced like she, even though it's spelled CI. Okay, confusing, right? This is where American English spelling is not matching with the pronunciation at all. Appreciate. It's not appreciate. It's not the S consonant. So that might be more of a British pronunciation. They might use more of an S sound there, appreciate. I have heard that, but not American English. We pronounce that with the SH sound. Appreciate, appreciate. All right, so SH there. Now, the last word, the most interesting thing about this sentence here, the word didn't. So he's doing two things here that very, very common for native speakers to do. Number one is he's pronouncing the DN combination with nasal plosion. Now, this might be challenging for you, but nasal plosion is when you have a D and an N next to each other. You don't pronounce the D like a normal D. You bring your tongue tip up for the D, and then you keep it there and then you drop the soft palate and just make the N. So let's practice this in a different word, the word sudden. Sudden, like ice, or suddenly. It was also sudden, okay? All of those times, I did not use nasal plosion. Sudden. My tongue tip clearly dropped, and I pronounced a vowel in between the D and the N. Sudden. Din. Din. Now, with nasal plosion, that vowel is gone, and there's no drop of tongue. It's just sudden. Sudden, sudden, or suddenly, suddenly, not suddenly, sudden, din. Keep the tongue tip up and try to match that sound. Really, you're dropping the soft palate and pronouncing an N. And it's called nasal plosion because you feel suddenly all this air come out the nose because you're making a nasal consonant very quickly. Sudden, sudden. So if this is new to you, this will probably take you a while to master, but it's worth mastering because lots of native speakers are using nasal plosion when they can. He does that here in the word didn't, 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 and he drops the T. So here's a case where you have this N apostrophe T ending, and it's a T that comes after an N sound, and sometimes that T is dropped. Here's where a T sound can be dropped. Now, it happens quite often with contractions like didn't, couldn't, can't. And when you do that, you're dropping sometimes what makes it sound like cannot, right? If you drop the T in can't and just pronounce it as can, now it sounds like the opposite of what you're trying to say. So it's confusing. I don't want to confuse you anymore, but that happens with these NT contractions, okay? That final T is sometimes dropped. And here it is being dropped. So he pronounces this as didn't. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste, didn't waste, didn't waste. All right, that does happen. That final T of these contractions gets dropped quite a bit. You could be linking it to a vowel. Here he's linking it to a consonant and it still got dropped. All right, so this is one of those things that happens. He's dropping other T's that I don't necessarily agree with, like in the word it's, although it happens. But here he's dropping it. And yeah, it does happen on occasion. But again, you need to know that this is not always how you're going to pronounce the word didn't. Sometimes, there's like 5-6 ways to pronounce it. And you're going to want to shift your pronunciation depending on your audience and what you want to say. So this is just another pronunciation that you can learn and use. But typically it happens, in fast speech, in informal speech. I wouldn't necessarily always use this pronunciation. But it's good to know about it and practice it so you can start integrating it into your own conversations. So let's play this back again for you and then move on to the next sentence.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time. This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
Sun cream, seriously?
All right, here we are with the final sentence. 2 sentences, really, both quite short, and they're both spoken by Wednesday. So her intonation, finally, she is not using flat intonation. Still sarcastic, but just not flat. So for both of these, sentences, sun cream, really? She's using rising intonation. And really it's to express like disbelief or surprise. She's looking down at that hand and she just can't believe that the hand packed, this sun cream that was more than 3.4 ounces. And so she's surprised at that. She doesn't believe it. So that's why she's kind of going up with her intonation there. So let's play that back so you can practice that as well.
Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously?
Now let's talk about this interesting link that she uses between the words sun and cream. So she doesn't say sun cream. She says sun cream. All right, so when I play this back for you, watch what her tongue is doing. You don't see her tongue tip come up, sun cream. It's the back of tongue, so you can't really tell because it's kind of dark. Sun cream. So why does she pronounce it that way? Well, this is something interesting that happens when you're linking a nasal consonant like the N consonant to a velar consonant like the K consonant k in the cluster, the KR cluster in cream. You have this assimilation of placement of the tongue. And what happens is the N consonant, which is an alveolar consonant made with the front of the tongue, changes its placement to be a velar sound because it's linking to a velar sound, a velar K. So what does that change into? It changes to the NG consonant. So it maintains the nasality. It's still a nasal. That's still the manner of the pronunciation, air release through the nose. But the placement of the tongue changes to assimilate to the next sound. This is quite common when a word ends with N and links up to a G or a K consonant, okay? And it changes to the NG. It just happens all the time. And native speakers are not even aware of it. So, but that's what she does here, okay? So if you find that you're doing that too, hey, that's totally fine because native speakers do it as well. So it's not sun cream. She says sun cream. Sun cream? Sun cream? Now, when you're saying it quickly, everyone hears sun. They hear the correct word. Now, you could pronounce it with an N, sun cream, and some native speakers maybe do. Maybe they're aware of this NG link that sometimes happens and they don't like it. Maybe it depends on how common that link is. Like the phrase, I can go. I can go. Lots of times is I can go. I can go. That N in can changes to the NG, I'm going to say, I don't know, 98% of the time. So native speakers are doing it, but maybe because the phrase sun cream is not as common. So maybe people are more careful with their pronunciation and they pronounce the N and not the NG. I don't know. It's hard to say. But here, sun cream, yeah, if I'm saying it quickly, I'm going to make that an NG consonant because that helps the link be easier. So let's play this back for you so you can hear it as well.
Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously?
All right, now one more thing to point out, this last word, seriously. So this word can mean several things in English. She uses it here to express surprise. And it's almost like she's saying, really? Because she doesn't believe it, right? So you'll hear native speakers use this all the time. Seriously? Are you serious? Are you serious right now? Really? I don't believe it. Seriously? She's using it to be a little bit more sarcastic as well, which is totally fine. This is, she's a young girl. This is kind of how she might be talking. I use this phrase seriously, like if I'm not, maybe I'm annoyed at something or I don't like someone did something, I don't like it, or I'm surprised by it. Really? It has a sarcastic tone to it, which I really like. And this, again, goes along with her character, right? Her character is very sarcastic. Seriously? So that's kind of a fun new word that you can start using if you want to express surprise, but in a sarcastic tone.
Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously? Sun cream, seriously?
Now the full conversation with the analysis.
I'm headed to the Junior Embalmers Convention in Kansas City. It's a prosthetic hand.
Yeah, that's not the problem. You care to explain this?
Curious. I have no idea how that ended up in there.
This is over 3.4 ounces, which means it's a big no-no. I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste our time.
Sun cream? Seriously?
All right, that's it for our breakdown of this scene from Wednesday. I hope this helped you to hear English a little differently, and maybe even speak it a little differently too. Remember, pronunciation isn't just about sounds. It's rhythm, linking, reductions, stress, and intonation. When you start noticing these things in real conversations and shows like Wednesday, your speaking and listening skills level up fast. Which part of the scene was the most surprising or helpful for you? Leave me a comment below. I read every one. And if you want more practice like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. Every subscriber helps, so please subscribe if you haven't already. And one more thing. Have you heard about my free English course called English Pro Lite? The link to enroll in English Pro Lite is in the description below. And in this course, you'll learn the highlights of the American accent, including the top vowels, consonants, syllable stress patterns, linking patterns, and reductions that native speakers are using in their everyday conversations. So if you like free training, be sure to enroll in English Pro Lite now using the link in the description. Oh, and I lied. I have one more thing to share with you. If you want exclusive practice videos that you can watch here on my channel, join my channel now and become a member. I upload new practice videos and audio lessons to my YouTube channel every month. And these are for YouTube members only. So click the join button below so you can start learning with this exclusive practice content. Thanks again for watching and happy practicing!